Greetings, students. This is one of 3 videos that I'll be recording today regarding the persuasion section of the course. And so we're going to focus on the upcoming persuasive speech assignment a little bit in this video by talking about persuasive speech structures, in particular, the problem-solution structure. Remember that that is the assigned structure that should be used for this particular upcoming speech assignment. So we're going to review 4 structures and one set of overriding thoughts that relate to all 4. So let's start with the overriding thoughts first. The overriding thoughts are these, that there are 3 basic issues that must be addressed pretty thoroughly in order to give a successful problem-solution oriented persuasive speech. So those 3 areas are need, plan, and practicality. So let's break those 3 things down a little bit. The biggest part of the persuasive speech probably should be the focus on the need. In other words, there's some motivation or primary driver that is causing you to talk about this issue right now. So what's wrong? Why are we talking about this now? Are there people suffering? Is there time being wasted, money being lost? What are the problems that you can lay out for us very clearly to help us understand how urgent it is to do something? So that's the primary reason behind wanting to do this speech to begin with, right, is having a problem to focus on. Then we move to the need part of this, or I'm sorry, the plan part of this. So the plan, of course, is your solutions. What do you want us to do? I mean, obviously the actions you're going to ask for need to be a little bit different than what's currently happening. So if we were just doing a speech where we were just going to talk about here's a problem that we're facing and here's what's being done about it, we've probably already seen a few examples of that in our informative speeches, which kind of kept them more on the informative side, whereas in a persuasive speech, we're clearly going to ask for additional actions to be taken, that we're not doing enough to fix the problem or make it go away. So do we need the government to be involved? Do we need businesses to change practices? Do you want people in the room to actually do something? Are there things that we can do? And of course, an overriding consideration of all of this is, will the audience believe that what you're asking for is practical, right? In other words, can we actually solve this problem with the actions that are being asked for? Will it work? And secondly, are the actions being asked for reasonable enough for us? Are they going to cost us too much time or too much money? I mean, always be weighing the concept of the cost-benefit analysis that your audience members are generally going through in their heads while you're talking about this type of presentation. Okay, so quickly, the 4 kinds of structures that I want you to choose from for this particular outline assignment that's coming up, right, are the problem-solution order, problem-cause-solution order, Monroe's motivated sequence, that's a little bit different, and then the that should say cause-effect solution order. I'll show you when I get there. So, all right, so let's start with the problem-solution order. Simple structure, 2 main points. Everything else about your outline should look exactly like the previous outline that you worked on for your informative speech, right? There should be an introduction, a body, a conclusion, a works cited section. And that works cited section should have at least 5 sources as a minimum instead of 3, right? But we're talking about just the body of the speech right now as we look at these structures. So within the body, you would have 2 main points. Main point 1, what is the problem? Main point 2, what do you want us to do about it? So let's look at one of those. If I were giving a speech to persuade my audience that using antibacterial chemicals in household products is creating health and environmental problems, and we should reduce their use, then I need to, number 1, prove that it's a problem. So what are the health and environmental problems that I'm saying exist from these? Well, the health problems is, we maintain possibly too clean of an environment sometimes, which can make us more susceptible to weaker levels of bacteria. These chemicals also leach their way into our water supply and affect plant and wildlife. And there's also the possibility that we're creating these super bugs, just like with antibiotics. If they get overprescribed, then the fear is that we won't be able to create antibiotics strong enough to kill all bugs in the future. So that's part of the problem that you would probably describe there. Main point two, how do we solve that? Do we need the government to change regulations in regards to how much of it can be sold? Do we want businesses to change their practices in some way? But clearly, this is one of those where we could ask consumers to just buy less of things, right, that have antibacterial chemicals. Maybe having a little bit of antibacterial soap in your house is an okay thing, but using it for your hand cleaning all of the time is not necessary. We don't need antibacterial cutting boards. We don't need, antibacterial plates and everything else in the world, right, to remove bacteria when common household cleaning products already can do that for us. All right, so everything else that we talk about here is basically just a variation of this type of structure. So I'll be very quick to talk about them. So the first variation is the problem cause solution order, which basically main point one tells us what the problem is, main point two analyzes where that problem comes from, and main point three gives us the solutions. So we've added a clear analytical main point in the causal section. The benefit of doing that is when we have solutions, then those solutions should probably pretty clearly address the causes of the problem, right? So we'll look at an example here. If I'm trying to persuade my audience that the age for full motor vehicle driving privileges should be raised to 18. By the way, not personal belief of mine, just trying to use examples, right? But so what would be the problem and why would someone give this speech? Well, main point one could focus on the number of accidents and deaths that involve teenage drivers, in particular that 16 and 17-year-old category. The numbers are higher in regards to deaths in particular than they are to any other age group. So why is that? Well, there are four main causes. You can outline them if you wanted to in that type of presentation. I'll give you a couple. The brain research suggests that mental development has not occurred at a rate that makes it easy for people in that age group to assess risks of given situation. And that's problematic when someone's behind the wheel of a heavy vehicle. There's also the fact that people who are 16 and 17-year-olds are much more likely to be in high school and surrounded by less mature peers, and the decision making that happens in those groups can be problematic for young drivers as well. So there are a variety of causes. So then what do? We ask the government to change rules and regulations, probably. We might even ask for one of our local politicians to promote certain rules to get that process started in our own state, right? All right, so variation number two from problem solution structure is called Monroe's motivated sequence. As it says here, it's a 5-step sequence that's designed for cases where you're going to ask for the audience to get involved right now. So if you want people to donate money, register to vote, join your organization, volunteer their time, and you've got a sign-up sheet for them right there, right now in the room, then that's when you might want to use this type of structure. It is laid out with this 5-step sequence. Number one, grab people's attention. Number two, demonstrate that there's a need for a change. In other words, what's the problem? Number three, how do we solve it? So really everything up until this point is just grab the audience's attention and have a problem solution structure, right? Where it gets a little different with Monroe's motivated sequence is visualizing. In other words, help the audience understand the consequences of either acting or not acting. And action would be giving the audience something specific to do. Now, this actually looks probably very familiar to most of us because we've seen it play out literally thousands and thousands of times. It's not an exaggeration on television because this structure was created for TV back in the 30s by a University of Purdue professor named Alan Monroe. And Basically, to give you a quick example of this one, attention getting, a picture of a starving child from somewhere in the world. The need. Right now, more than 300,000 children in this region of the world are starving. They have uh, dirty water, that they can't access education. They're dying more than they should. You can help by merely donating a certain amount of money per month to this particular cause, organization. Imagine the benefit, the visualization, right, that your dollars will have on this community and the relationship that you've created with this part of the world that will enrich your life for forever. So call now, right? That's Monroe's Motivated Sequence 101. All right, so the third variation that I want to talk about is the cause-effect solutions structure. Again, just a minor variation, but this example, I apologize for it, but it's a little on the nose at the moment, but it was easy to come up with, right? So the thesis of this type of speech would be people must become better at social distancing. Hi, everybody, to prevent the spread of new viruses and help prevent pandemics. So main point one, people are unintentionally making the spread of COVID-19 worse. You know, people who are getting out of their house more than they should, going to bars and restaurants or to beaches or any number of places because they don't think it's going to affect them personally, right? So then main point two, there are a variety of reasons why we behave in these situations, you know, like this. We don't see any regular symptoms in ourselves. We don't believe that we actually access or worry about the spread. We may think it's overblown, that the media is making something out of nothing. There's all kinds of issues in there, right? And then main point three, what are the behavioral changes that all of us need to make a big difference in flattening the curve, right? That whole thing that they've talked about a million times over the last few months. All right, or the last few weeks, sorry. So those are some examples for the problem solution structures for the persuasive speech. I hope this video does help you. And if you have any questions or concerns about the structure of your persuasive speech, then definitely shoot me an email and I'll try to respond. Pay attention to those other two videos, and I hope that these lectures and this work is productive for you this week. Thanks.